Okay, it's December 14th, 2017. This is a meeting of the Wolfeboro Budget Committee, and tonight we're going to be working on agencies, park and rec review, finishing up the warrant articles, default budget, and the estimated revenues. Who do we have for agencies tonight? Anybody? Okay, why don't you come up first, ma'am? Okay, please come up here. Thank you. Hi, just have a seat. Can I get your name too, please?
My name is Rita Primo.
Okay. Rita, can you tell us a little bit what you folks do?
I can. We provide public transportation in the Carroll County, Grafton County, and Coos County.
And how does the transportation work? Just give us a little breakdown of how that works.
We have two services that we service right now in Carroll County. The first is a door-to-door service, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. People can call in. We bring them in Moultonboro, Wolfeboro, Tamworth, to the hospitals, if they have to get out to food shop, rehabilitation. And then we also have a flex route that runs 1 day a week from Wolfeboro area to Conway on Thursdays. We will be suspending that service in the near future, but we are going to offer another bus running 5 days a week, door to door. That's what they're just waiting for the approval from the DOT to be able to do that.
Okay. Do you folks charge any fee or anything?
Excuse me. Yes, we do, and I'm sorry
That's
I've come
okay.
down with an awful cold this week. We do charge people that are 60 years old is a suggested donation. If you're under 60, depending on where you're going, the fees could be anywhere from $3 to $5 each way. We also provide long-distance medical. We have a lot of people that we service in this area that we could take to CMC. We take them to Wolfeboro, Dartmouth
Okay.
for medical appointments.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Great, thank you for coming in.
All right, thank you.
Okay, who else do we have? Sure, why don't you come up, please?
I bring this because I'm standing in for somebody, so
Okay.
I've never done this before, and it's
Which group are you doing, ma'am?
a starting point.
Okay.
Joan Abbott.
Can you speak to the microphone?
Oh, sorry. Do you want me to repeat that?
The acoustics are not good.
You want to tell us just a little bit about Starting Point?
Starting Point is a domestic violence and sexual assault crisis center. It offers shelter to women and children who have been abused. And it also staffs advocates who work with victims. And I'm a volunteer, so we have multiple volunteers who staff the crisis line, do hospital calls and such.
And let me see here. You folks have gone up a little bit from last year.
Yes.
Is that due to the services that you provided to the community, or? I know a lot of times you go up and down, your group goes up and
Yep.
down on the...
Yep, they've given me, do you want me to read what they've given me?
Sure.
Okay. So let's see. We've requested $1,884 from Wolfeboro for this year, which is up from last year's request of $1,697. In fiscal year 17, we served 16 individuals, providing 117 services to those folks. In fiscal year 16, we served 20 individuals, providing 153 services to those individuals. The difference this year is that we've increased our whole ask of the towns. Do you want me to give you the amounts? We've increased the whole ask of our towns, to from $29,375 to $35,000, increasing the base amount requested from each town to $1,000 from $750.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Yeah.
Would you repeat the number of your request? How much it was? It seemed to me that that was different than what's in the...
1,884.
Okay, so the presentation letter has 1,891. Everybody else have that? That's what I have.
Yeah.
Right, and also our budget sheet has the same, 1,891, so it's a $7 difference. Not that
I
it's-
just have a sheet that they emailed to me, which has the 1,884 on
Okay,
it. I
all
can-
right, so,
I'm not sure.
What was that number again you had? What was the number you had in your sheet?
1,884.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, who else do we have for agencies? This young lady here, thank you. I forgot mine here.
My name is Julia LaFleur. I'm from CASA of New Hampshire. And I do have some updated budget information if you're interested in seeing.
Okay,
Want me to pass that?
all right, we'll share it.
thank you. Can you just give us a little breakdown of what you folks in CASA do?
Sure. So CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates. We are a statewide organization. So we train and recruit volunteers throughout the state who go into the court systems to speak on behalf of abused and neglected children. Our volunteers do this totally without pay, without any stipend. If we did not have our CASA volunteers, the state would then pay a state-appointed guardian ad litem at $60 an hour plus travel costs for each case. So our CASAs take on maybe 1 or 2 children or cases, and they meet with the children, they get an idea of what their circumstance is. They then go into the court for the children to speak on their behalf. We have currently about 1,300 volunteers across the state. 1,300 children throughout the state that we're serving, and about 512 volunteers.
Any questions for CASA?
No.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Okay, ladies.
Yes, hello, I'm Joanne Kelly, the Executive Director of Children Unlimited, and I'm here for the Carroll County Resource Center. I have some brochures.
Last one.
We are your state certified resource center for all of Carroll County. At this point, what we do is work with families who are in need to keep them out of the DCYF system. Some families may need extra support in parenting education. It includes home visiting. It includes working with families who are working with grandparents maybe whose children have been maybe affected by the opioid crisis, so they're now raising their grandchildren since. our inception, the referrals have gone up over a third over the past couple of years due to the opioid crisis, which is why I'm coming to you for the first time. Right now, we find that the grant alone and the fundraising that we do cannot support the number of referrals that we're getting. If we engage with the family, we are able to keep families out of the DCYF system about 98% accuracy. So it definitely is a program that helps to save money by just providing some support.
What other towns in Carroll County you're asking money from or support from?
Let's see, Ossipee and Wakefield and all of the northern Carroll County, Jackson, Bartlett, Conway, Eaton, Freedom, Chatham, all the towns. We served 10 families in Wolfeboro during this past year, and 2 with therapeutic services were provided. 2 families were provided with therapeutic services.
Now, do you charge anything for these services?
No, we do not.
You work in conjunction with,
Shelley Rondeau works in this part of the community for us. We have 3 full-time providers and 2 part-time. Helen Rottenberger and Shelley Rondeau work in this area, as well as some of our full-time staff come down too.
do you work at all with the VNA hospice on anything?
With hospice?
Yeah.
We work with the liaison, the school liaisons. Barbara is the director of the I'm the executive director of Children Unlimited. She's the director of the resource center.
Okay.
We don't work with hospice, but Shelley, who's our southern part, works out of VNA.
She works out of VNA, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I was wondering. How did you come up with the funding for each town? What was your formula for that?
We're asking for each town to pay for 1 visit per family. So where there were 10 families, that's how I came up with that number.
Okay.
A visit costs $273, so we're asking $2,730 for the 10 families. So far, we are servicing 8 families, and that's from July 1st. So our fiscal year goes from July 1st to June 30th. So we're already ahead of last year and the year before.
Do you have any idea what your total budget is?
Total budget. Yep. I think I know I sent it to the town. If you want to.
46,000? And
I think we have that in our...
You got it there? Okay.
Yeah.
166,
166.
073.
Are you getting any money from Carroll County, the delegation of the commissioners?
No, we haven't asked them for any money.
Okay. Questions?
Just one thing, on that sheet, you're showing a almost $20,000 loss
Right.
on this
Right.
financial year. So,
That's why we're going to the towns.
Right, right. Do you have any kind of a cushion? I don't see an asset sheet, so usually we have an asset sheet that accompanies the income and expense statement, and a lot of people have money in the bank to back them up, but I don't see that in your case. How do you deal? What I'm asking is, how do you deal with a $20,000 loss?
Well, because we do fundraising.
Okay.
So we write an appeals letter, we have a fundraiser yearly, and we have raffles and things like that to try to make up the difference for the program.
Okay, thank you.
I also have, I'm not sure if you got this, but a success in avoiding future DCYF services. This was for Carroll County.
Yes,
It
I
sh-
think we have that.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Without the color.
We're actually #1 in the state for families who engage with the Resource Center to be able to stay out of the DCYF services.
I wanted to add that we have 2 contracts through the state, not a part of this, but where we do get reimbursed, and that, you know, it's sort of a chicken and egg, because it uses a lot of our time, but it also brings us in a little bit of money.
Right, right, good, very good. That's it for me, John.
Is there any other questions from anybody? Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think that's it on the agencies. Anybody else I've forgotten? Okay. Let's move into Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Okay, Christine's back before us asking to reinstate some funds that we took out on part-time wages. And I think I had down in my book for 117 part-time wages as $8,678, $8,698, somewhere in there.
8698.
86.98, that's what it was, okay. And I guess we had taken that down to an insufficient amount of $100, I guess apparently to cover the time frame from January 1st until, if the budget passes, until March. And she's in here now asking to have $9,038 reinstated into their budget line.
Well, that's not actually going all into that budget line. It's that whole series because you have the part-time salaries, so $8,351 for that line. And then it has the Social Security, unemployment, and the workers' comp, just showing those lines will increase as well.
Just for my mind, is this going to be the last full-time person position you're going to need within the next 5 years, or do you see need for additional full-time people?
I will say, I think we should be all set for full-time people. We don't know what the future holds, but I think we'll be where we need to be to manage our department.
And you prefer to have what's the full-time person, 35 hours?
40.
40 hours, you prefer to have one 40-hour position rather than 2 positions at 29 and a half hours?
Correct.
Okay, any motions concerning reinstating some of the salary of the figures that Christine has provided?
Yeah, yes. And before I make the motion, I just want to double-check the number. You want to up 117 to 8351, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I make a motion to raise line 117 in Parks and Rec Administration from $100, $8,351, and adjust all 200 series lines accordingly, please.
You would have to raise that 8,351, but there would still be another $100 in there presently for the annual leave cover. So in other words, you would also have to do the health benefits too. Not the health, but the other benefits, Social Security. So the total, the add would have to be 903.
Yeah, well, I'm not certain that the budget committee, when you made the reduction last time, I don't think you cut the benefits.
No.
So you're saying you did it?
Well, yeah, when they lowered it, it automatically took those
Oh,
benefits
okay,
out.
so I guess we did take them out, okay.
I'm a little confused on it. Do you want us to make the 4 motions then, Pete, for the
If you
4
could do it
lines?
For the 9038, that would be great.
Okay, then I'll amend my motion to have lines 117, 220, 250, and 260 adjusted to $9,038.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to adjust in the Parks and Rec, line 117, 220, 250, and 260, to a total of $9,038. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have anything else for Christine? Christine, do you have anything else for us?
Well, I just have my warrant article, but do you want me to wait? I can wait. If
It's a
you're not
small little article.
ready. It's just the Abenaki capital, but I'll wait if you want to wait.
No, let's get you out of the way.
Is that?
I don't mean that surreptitiously. Is that the word I'm looking for? I'm not sure. Okay, that's going to be Abenaki Ski Area Capital Reserve account. That's for $16,750.
Correct.
How much do you have in there so far? You know?
I would say, do you have a note? Because I have 53, 7, okay, sorry.
Okay,
On the reverse side, it says 53,767 on your paperwork.
Benex ski area,
Right.
55,078.16.
What was that number?
55,678.16. That was from the report that came up was for August, so there's a little more than interest in it than that. Had a few bucks. About that.
And, Christine, according to your sheet, it looks like you're looking to replace the rope and groomer next year? Does it for,
We just recently replaced the rope because it didn't make it, so we replaced that. So it's the groomer. We're confident we can get through this season, but we're looking to the next season. So we work with Friends of Abenaki, and what we'll do is we have our current groomer, so we'll try to get a deal where we trade that in and utilize that money.
There will be enough money there to buy it, will there? To buy a new one?
No, they're super expensive. Usually what you do is go to the bigger ski areas, and sometimes they filter them through to the smaller ski areas.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working with. So we have a lot of people just knowing that we're looking for one. So if the right price comes up and we can afford it, we'll go for it.
John,
Yes, John.
quick question. I saw in the operating budget you have, well, what does it cost to replace the rope?
Let's see, we just switched to a new rope. It's about, I think it's like $5,000. It just
What?
depends. About 5,000.
Because I noticed in the operating budget, you got, in your maintenance line, you got tow rope.
Yep, so what we do, well, sometimes we have to fix the rope so we don't replace it so often, but you can fix it and just retwine it, so that's what we do. But after a certain amount of times, there's only so many times you can do that before you have to replace it.
Okay, do you have a target of the amount of money you want to have in the capital reserve at all times?
Well, according to the sheet, we just ask for that amount, and based on that, we know when stuff is going out of commission, so that's why we have it the way we have it.
We have,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Did
see
you have
the
that sheet?
sheet.
Yes. So there's not a target amount because it's, I mean, we're not trying to just raise that pot. We're trying to just cover the things that might go out of commission. What's not in our budget. That's not in our budget. And these are bigger priced items, like a groomer, the snow guns are on there, the compressor and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions for Abenaki Ski Area Capital Reserve? Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay, let's jump down to Libby Museum feasibility study. Okay, it looks like you're requesting $75,000, which two-thirds of it will be borne by private foundation, and one-third by the town. So you'd be asking the town for $25,000. And what's this study going to consist of?
The study is actually feasibility for the restoration and potential expansion of the Libby Museum itself to house an additional collection that's been offered. Maybe I can give a little bit of background about it.
Certainly.
The Libby's now 105 years old. It was built or opened in 1912. It's a timber frame building, as most of you know, without heating or insulation. It's an innovative construction, but is well below modern museum standards. And over the years, repairs that have been done to hold the walls together, the timber frame, and to re-roof it have been done, but the current building is facing structural challenges. Again, moisture and the underpinnings of the floor, which are currently being assessed. The current exhibit items, most of which have survived freezing winters for the time that the museum's existed, are suffering as a result of the temperature, moisture, and light. There's no LEDs in current use, and the current collection is in a critical state. We've been offered another substantial collection of over 200 items, a North American collection from an anonymous donor who requires about 1,000 square feet of space. The museum itself has about 5,000 square feet of space. It's 140 feet by 40. The donor is making the generous offer with limited requirements except for temperature control, because without temperature control, it will damage these 200 additional items. The feasibility will present options for the potential to restore the current building, to house the current and potential North American collection. 2/3 of the cost is covered by a charitable donation, and 1/3 is requested from the town.
Questions? John?
Yes, you say you're going to have humidity control in this, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year? Have you considered what the additional electrical costs are going to be?
The additional running costs for the museum, if it was brought up to standard to be able to house the additional collection and preserve the existing collection, will be part of the feasibility study. So the study will tell us options and what they will cost, including the running costs.
So you expect your operating costs to increase after this is completed?
I think it's without a doubt the operating costs of the Libby Museum will increase. If this isn't done, your current collection won't exist in another 50 years.
Well, value of that is another discussion.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
So this study is basically going to say what direction we should go with the museum, as far as rebuilding it, remodeling, or whatever.
Yes, and what took place over the summer, I mean, as most of you know, it's my first summer at the Libby, is at the beginning of the summer, we knew we had on offer this North American collection, and there was a discussion about an extension or an annex. Where do we put it? Should something new be built? And over the course of the summer, looking in detail at the collection, it's now clear that there's potential as an option to actually restore the current building for the current collection as well as the North American collection. Things would have to be rearranged, and it's been discussed with one of the architects who knows the building very well, but the 1,000 square feet of additional space required may be feasible within one of the options going forward. So you'd be able to house it all under the same roof.
Didn't realize this.
Just clarification, the warrant article amount is $75,000, and in your proposal it says that a private foundation is proposed to give $50,000, which is 2/3 of it. Do they have that? Is that something that they have on hand? So that
Yeah, they do have that funding on hand. That same anonymous donor previously donated the moose that's in the museum and has been a long-term supporter of
so
the
the incurred amount would be $25,000.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just, touching on what you said, John, I think the answer to the question is yes, we have to look at this building. It's probably one of our most historic buildings in town. I'm sure considered by many old-time families, traditionalists, that it is a town treasure. And in the short term, that's why I think this feasibility study and these ideas that we have moving forward a couple of years, whether some type of HVA system, I think is important to preserve this historic building and its contents. And I'm a new kid on the block in town, but I think this would be the Wolfeboro way, and that's my feeling on it. Elena mentioned the lighting up there. I believe, if I'm correct, Elena, the whole length of the building's fluorescent lights on the ceiling, and they're old, very old fixtures and very rusted. And I just happened to take a look at the electric meter on my way out of the building on one of my trips up there. And the meter was running as if there was an electric dryer and an electric stove oven on. The meter was spinning off the wall. And it's probably because of this humongous collection of old fluorescent bulbs up there. So I think the lighting itself would probably save a ton of money. And so, that's it.
John, I have a comment.
Yeah.
I can tell you that there is my grandson in England who loves that place. Absolutely loves it. Every summer he comes here, he wants to go to the Living Museum, so trust me, we want to keep it the way it's intended to be.
Bob? Anybody else? Don't forget that Indian out front.
Yeah. He's on his way inside soon.
What's that?
He's on his way inside soon.
Okay, good. I remember that thing as a kid also, so,
There you go.
yeah.
You're the man.
Oh, please. I wasn't the other night when it was snowing, was I?
Still not.
I'm still not, okay. Thank you so much, Alana, I appreciate
Thank
it. Okay, let me see here. Fire Chief? Hi, Chief.
Good evening.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your warrant article for the replacement of some of the apparatus that we set aside money for?
So this is our annual request for $186,000 for the capital improvement plan to replace apparatus on a scheduled cycle. We've worked very diligently. The staff has done some very creative work, and we've been able to come in and keep this at a level that is not increasing. With that said, you may recall last year this appropriation was $122,000. The reason for that is because the original anticipated purchase of the utility truck was supposed to be $155,000. We were able to come in with a replacement vehicle for $86,000. So we feel that that package that we put together last year serves the community much better than the previous vehicle. Going forward, on the horizon, in 2018, one of our pumper tankers is scheduled for replacement. We are currently working with vendors, and we are in the final stages of building a specification to put out for RFP in 2018. The budgeted price tag for that piece of apparatus is $550,000. Currently, there is, if I'm not mistaken, Pete, there is $881,000 in that account. The next scheduled replacement would be in 2020, which is the ladder truck. The anticipated price of that is $950,000, at which point the CIP will be at a deficit of $70,000. Beyond that, in 2023, we anticipate replacing another pumper tanker. Anticipated purchase price of that truck at this point is $450,000. And when that purchase occurs, based on that price, we'll have a balance in that account of $7,500. You might ask, why is the difference in 2018 versus 2023? Why are we looking at $100,000 more this year versus 2023? Right now, the department has two 10-wheel pumper tankers. Our plan is to go to one of those large trucks. The reason behind it is because many of our neighbors now have those larger trucks. We don't have the need for two trucks of that size. So that's where we are at, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can for you.
In 2020, where are you going to find the extra $70,000?
Couple of things we're hoping to be able to do is this year, or in 2018 rather, when we put the RFP out, we're hoping to come in under budget. Number two, there is, as I'm sure you're aware, a feasibility study that's getting ready to take place at the Public Safety Building for a replacement or a upgrade at that facility. There is a possibility, if that truck continues to pass certification, we may hold off on the purchase. And the reason is the current doors are 12 feet tall. The existing truck is 11.6. We get a few inches of snow, it gets close. We can actually today purchase a shorter wheel-based truck that would maneuver in our community much better with the same size aerial mounted on top of it. The drawback is the truck is pretty close to 12 feet tall.
Now, it used to be when got rid of an engine here, it went over to the the other station? Is that what you're going to do with this one? Send it over there, or?
No, so what'll happen with this particular truck, this truck will get traded.
Okay.
There is actually a significant market for trucks like this. Preliminary discussions with a couple of vendors, they are looking at trade-in values $50,000 to $75,000. So again, that would be an avenue to be able to create a buffer in that account for us.
Okay, any other questions of the chief? John?
Yes, Chief. When was this engine purchased?
This particular engine that we're replacing was purchased in 1998.
So
20-year life cycle.
it's 19 years old then?
Yeah, it'll be 20 years. The other thing about these purchases, and the reason why we're getting it, we're working on it now, these builds take upwards of 240 days. We really don't want to be having a truck arrive here in December, January for driver training in less than optimal conditions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you, chief.
Thank you very much.
20 years is long enough.
Barry, you want to come up and tell us about the reconstruction of the 390 line?
Back up.
Good evening. If you recall, this year, we did the engineering and surveying of that 390 line as a 2017 warrant article in preparation for 2018 to actually do the construction. At this point, the survey and engineering is completed. That's why you see a revised price from the original price that you saw when we reviewed my operating budget. The new price, $1,210,000. A lot of that increase was attributed to the excess amount of wetlands that were actually delineated throughout that right-of-way. And therefore, there'd have to be some additional precautions taken with laying down timber mats, and as well as silt fencing, which is the major part of that increase. So this is our lifeline. This is our solely incoming line to Wolfeboro. This is the original line that was built in the early 60s. It's going to be over 54 years old by next year. So we've seen condition issues with it, and it's due. It's certainly due.
Now, does something like this go out to bid, Barry, or how does this work?
Yeah, this will certainly go out to bid.
Okay.
I may even pre-bid it just to have some really hard numbers with the stipulation that funding would be approved.
And there won't be any effect on the tax rate, but there will be a reflection on the electric bill?
Well, these projects are already built into our current rate.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so there wouldn't be any, there wouldn't be an increase in our electric rate based on this project. And I would continue to propose to fund it from current revenue, from our unrestricted fund balance, which is still healthy. We're a little over 5.5 million in that.
Yeah, 5.6 million in the electric utility fund.
Oh, nice.
Unreserved fund balance, so even at $1.2 million, we'll still have a healthy reserve.
Yep.
This like a summer project to be all done in one swoop, or?
Well, I think it would be a 6 to 8 month project. It's a pretty large scale project. We would build the line in place. We're just going to go up with taller poles and then reconductor the whole thing. New insulators, new cross arms.
And you take down the old stuff, or?
And then after everything new's built, we'd take down the old, correct?
Okay.
And now with the survey, we would reestablish our right-of-way as for regards to trimming. Now we have a more defined survey, so.
Any other questions?
Yeah. How does that line look on the other side of the Tuftonboro line?
Well, it's the same vintage. I mean, it was all built in, so there's probably 3 miles or so on the Eversource side that they own. it's going to be the same vintage. Unfortunately, they're not going to be as
Yeah.
quick to rebuild their section, Bob, as we may be. You know, I can really only control what we own.
So we have about a 3-mile liability from the Tuftonboro line to where
do.
you have maybe alternate sources that feed
Correct.
that line?
We own and we have to maintain our section of it, and we have to do the repairs on our section.
But on the Eversource side, it's still a single line for about 3 miles.
It would be the existing for that section. We certainly will hold meetings with them. We've talked in the past about trying to get on the same construction schedule, but
Yeah.
they're going to be a little further out than we are. They're a little less motivated than I guess we are. As part of this project, we would add a switch to where we take over ownership, and that would allow us to have a little better control when we have outages, so that we can isolate from the source and then we can work on our section without waiting for them, which has been a problem in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Barry.
Okay. Are you going to do building maintenance capital reserve, or who's doing that?
Which one, I'm sorry?
Building maintenance capital reserve?
I can discuss it, or David's here.
Okay.
Can discuss it also.
Well, so have Mr. Ford do all the rest of them. Okay, looks like we left off with the Pine Street water line replacement.
We, Pine Street, we had designed a reconstruction of Pine Street and Crescent Lake Avenue, one big project, and the hope was that it was going to follow the Center Street project. The Center Street project has been delayed. Obviously, it's under construction now, and we're hoping it's going to be wrapped up next year. But the cost as for a total rebuild was going to be significant and probably have to be a bonded project. We changed the strategy with the idea that this Pine Street water line is original 4-inch unlined cast iron pipe that is in pretty rough shape. Anytime we have a disturbance, we get dirty water on that stretch, and it tends to contaminate other areas. So we felt it was necessary to go ahead and do this, and it also the benefit of doing it early, we can then follow up in 2019 with the road and the sidewalk project. These funds are coming from our unrestricted fund balance, and we'd like to do it right at the end of the project we do next year. Hopefully, we'll be wrapping up, and then in the fall, we'd get it done.
Any questions for the Pine Street water line replacement? John?
Yeah, one question, David. Where does that water line hook into the main line leading to it?
It's right at the intersection of Pine Street and Center Street. There's when they went through with the water main, the 12-inch main that was replaced back in 2000, that time frame, there's a stub there. Then it's downsized to the 4-inch, so it's going to stop where it's new there, and then it's going to go up until we hit a section of new main, which is a cast iron cement line that's further up, about 820 feet from the intersection, and then we'll go back to that pipe, which still has many years of useful life.
So it won't, your work on Center Street, paving and all of that?
It's already there's a piece that'll be extended out under that contract, so this will start from there and then go from there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hey, where does that take you, up to the top of the hill then? 820 feet, just about?
Right, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there's about halfway up the hill, not all the way, but, you go by the barber shop, but a little further beyond the barber shop.
There was a problem 15 or 18 years ago, I heard about, that the ledges did not expand their operation because of the lack of water. The problem with the water line on Pine Street.
The ledges, which is off of Center Street,
It comes off Center Street now.
right, they had talked about an expansion and then looping the system.
but I was not aware of a problem with the existing project. So when they were going to expand, and that's
Yes, they wanted to expand.
it would have then looped, and then we would have had a problem because we'd be looping into that bad section, so this will now...
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. Bay Street sidewalk, warrant article.
The community and the Pathways Committee, talking about our walkability of our community. Many people have talked about the need for a sidewalk on Bay Street. Back about 7, 8 years ago, when we were looking at paving Bay Street, they asked if we could do it. I said, no, it's a complicated project because we have the utility poles on either side. It's a 40-foot right-of-way. We got a lot of issues, and it wasn't something that we could do easily. So we put it off, but the need has come back, and obviously would make a nice walking path right now. People do use it. It's relatively dangerous because of speeds, and unfortunately that road is kind of a cut-through road, and it's pretty high. So what this project is to do the design and survey of the right-of-way and determine the best location, to work out all the problems. We'd probably have to get easements from many of the property owners so that we could have a nice, safe sidewalk. And what we're looking at is a two-phase project with the engineering first, and that's what I think we're asking for here is $45,000. The estimated construction cost is $400,000. So again, why it's important everyone know that it's a smaller project this year, but it could lead to a much bigger project in the following year or whenever the town decides to move forward.
So how many years down the road do you project before this happens?
I think the plan was that it would follow up relatively quickly. If under the CIP, I was thinking that it would be, the next few years.
How many years?
I don't have a specific date because we don't. I don't know if it's in the CIP now. Do you know if it's locked in for next year, 2019, or?
I don't remember, and I surrendered my book.
Yeah. No, I think it was going to follow up relatively quickly. The intent was to keep pushing it forward. If the town voted for it here and was supportive of it, it could be as soon as 19, or as soon as we could fit it within the funding available.
John?
Yes, sir.
I have the CIP book. I don't have it with me, but if you need to,
Okay,
I can email you the date if you
what
want.
concerns us, a lot of times we spend money right now that we don't get the projects until 4 or 5 years down the road. That's why I'm wondering if,
And that's not the case. It was either 2019 or 2020.
to do the sidewalks?
It was scheduled soon after.
Yeah, that's
It was on there? Okay.
my memory of it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
One of the factors here is that, as you may know, the New Hampshire Boat Museum is going to be building a new facility on Bay Street at an estimated cost of about $5 million. They have stressed to the town that they want a walkable facility where people can, walk to and from their museum from downtown. So to do that, you need a sidewalk, to do it safely anyway. Also, we have along or near Bay Street, we have the Taylor community, which is independent or assisted living. Those folks also walk along that street, and they go to places like Back Bay Park and such. And we do get complaints from time to time from those residents about, why didn't the town put a sidewalk here so we don't have to worry about, getting run down in the street?
So is this going all the way down Bay Street, all the way to the end?
That's the intent, eventually. Doesn't have to go there.
What's this going to do? On this one, what is this going to do? How far is it going to go?
The survey would be all of Bay Street, all of right-of-way, and it would be the intent to lay it out all the way to Elm Street.
Okay.
But there
And
are...
how about Elm Street down? Is that going to be done over too, or?
Elm Street down is not a sidewalk, it's a pathway, but that is another logical next project down the road would be to look at that. That's going to require some significant construction because there's large trees and stone walls that are going to have to be relocated. So the idea was to get this stretch. We do have, again, it's a three-season path, and it's decent, and that's what most of our walking is. So it would create the loop, and it does connect you to the Back Bay Park.
Okay, but this particular one's going to go all the way to the end of the Bay Street.
The design.
The design is. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, I just want to say I'm not a big fan of this one. We're taking on more debt service when I don't think we need to, with a couple of big projects coming up, and just a little more housekeeping, Dave. Up top, it's desirable and then
And I've
rational
also
and
mistaken that because it says decrease O&M costs. That's incorrect. It would be increase.
Yeah, and you have urgent need checked on the left column, so that just needs to be cleaned up. That's it.
Okay, any other questions?
Not a question, just a comment. I would echo that sentiment too.
Okay, let's move on from Bay Street sidewalks to established dockside docks and capital reserve.
What's the next one?
Dockside Docks Capital Reserve.
Okay.
We spoke a little bit about this last night. Again, this was the selectmen's plan to start saving for the inevitable need to repair and upgrade the existing docks. And I think the intent was also to help fund the potential expansion. Is that correct?
Yes, that was the intent.
I have a question, John.
Yes, Sean.
If the ability to expand this, the dockside, depends upon whether or not the state will say yes or no. Is this correct?
Correct.
What happens if they say no? What is its impact on this capital reserve going to be?
Well, we know that we're looking at significant costs just to repair the existing docks. So we're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars for that. So if we decide not to go forward with the dock expansion project, we'll still be looking at significant costs well beyond the $100,000, closer to $400,000 in repair costs over the time. So again, the idea was that we'd start the savings account now.
Well,
and that's going to be better defined with the engineering you talked about last night.
yeah. What bothers me is that right now you have a target of $600,000 for the repair and expansion, something like that.
Okay.
Now, if you don't get the expansion approval, then it's up to $400,000. Now, once we got the $400,000 for the necessary repairs, is that correct?
The repairs are estimated at $420,000.
Okay. So once we got up to $400,000 and you got the repairs done, is this capital reserve going to be continued on at $100,000 a year?
I don't think that was the plan, no.
Not if there's no authorization to proceed with the
expansion.
With the expansion,
so
that depends whether that goes forward or not.
Once the repairs are done, then this warrant article goes bye-bye?
If there's no authorization for the expansion.
Yes. Assuming, that was my presumption. This warrant article then will be completed and no more active. Is that correct?
My understanding.
The only caveat to that would be, like I said last night, we really are trying to be Yankee with this. So if we can get certain parts that have been identified as deficient, but we can extend their useful life, say, for another 10 years,
Yeah?
then maybe the cost of the initial construction would be, say, $200,000. We've already have $100,000 in the bank. Next year at this time, we'll know what the costs are and what the phasing is going to be. So there's a potential that we could say, okay, in 19, all we need is another 100,000. We're going to put 200,000 in now, but we can get 10 more years out of this other section, and maybe we'd put that off and we say, oh, we still want to put money in for the next couple of years until we repair. So I can't answer 100% certainty that it's going to be strictly this for 4 years and we're going to do $400,000 worth of work.
You see my concerns here, that it's just going to be continued, $100,000, and we got some of the work done.
All our plans, except for the building maintenance plan, which is coming, is to be backed up with an engineering study, an asset management plan, which identifies the useful life of the asset, when it needs to be replaced, and what those costs are. So the only problem is, we don't know what those are yet because we know we have problems. We got a rough idea, but we have to get into the nuts and bolts. Okay. And once we define that, then next year we'll be able to tell you more specifically, so that it could end or it may extend with lesser amounts depending on when those repairs are.
So we have hopes in the future that maybe it won't be $100,000 a year.
It'll be what's necessary to fund the repairs when the repairs are deemed to be done.
Okay.
Which is
Never seen the capital reserve amount go down in the past.
Oh, they have. We have capital reserves for buildings at the public safety. We have capital reserves for libraries we don't fund. Each year you make the decision to fund or not to fund. So we have many capital reserves that no money's been put in. So it's every year we make that decision. It's not automatic.
Okay, thank you.
In other words, John, it's never going to go away. It's not going to go away.
But hopefully not at $100,000 a year.
Well, unless it says in there after such a time, it's never going to go away. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a question. Yeah, last night, I asked you the question on the dockside docks thing, which was going back to the selectmen to break out the expansion vis-a-vis the immediate repairs that are needed. And I questioned you and asked you what the items 1 and 2 on that were $90,000, $40,000 for making the emergency repairs and the engineering and permit repairs for those, and you said it was $90 grand to repair the problems we've got right now on those docks.
No,
Did I misinterpret you when you said yes, and is that wrong, or what?
Yeah, maybe I misspoke. It's $40,000 for the engineering and permitting for the repairs. No, let me get that.
40,000 for the emergency.
40,000 for the repairs and 50,000 for the engineering.
Yeah, right.
So it's a total of 90,000
Yeah.
for the existing docks.
The immediate problem we have, $90,000 to fix it.
40,000 to fix the emergencies and 50,000 to engineer the rest of the repair strategy and to determine. So there's two parts of it.
I'm with you. Okay.
Okay.
Now I understand. I didn't.
And then it was 25,000 for the dock expansion. I think that's what you guys voted on, to say if you took out the 25,000, hey, we'll fund this, but not the 25,000. And I think that your
No,
request
I
to the
understand. I
selectmen.
just want to make, get my head straight.
Okay.
Thank you.
I feel the same way as I did for the other one, that this should be two separate, one for maintenance of the docks and then one for a cost to expand the docks. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, well, it's all going back to the selectmen for their discussion on Wednesday evening.
Yeah, well, there's no need to, I don't know if you guys agree with me or not. If I'm the only one that thinks that way, then
No, I agree. Absolutely. Needs to be separate. I think the public needs to be aware of what's...
does everyone agree with that, or?
The only issue I have with that, what you said, John, is if the other warrant article were left intact and was voted down, this warrant article would give the town some funding to do the emergency repairs on the docks. That was my only concern. I didn't want to strip out any money.
Well, I'm not stripping on your money. I'm just asking him to change, to make one warrant account for the expansion of the docks.
Well, if we, Oh, so it'd be two separate warrant articles, one for,
The 100,000 to fix the docks, the current docks, and then anything to do with expansion would be another warrant article.
I think the intent of this warrant article is to defray the cost of bonding for the docks extension. I really think that's the intent of this warrant article. But it has the language of repairing the docks. But you know, I don't see why it would hurt to split them out either. You know,
I would just...
It could go either way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Does everyone agree they can just send it back to them to discuss it between them, the selectmen? Is that all right with everybody?
That's fine.
Okay. You guys okay with that? Okay. Okay. Let's move on. I guess we're all set on that one. What's going on down there now, David?
Dockside, we are now constructing the boat ramp, which was in our budget last year.
Yeah.
So they're widening and replacing all the docks. So right now, we saw the crane putting in the big bags. That's the cofferdam that's being built. It'll be going on for the next probably 3-4 weeks.
Okay, let's go to Dockside Parking Lot Capital Reserve.
I think 2 years ago, we had funded the design of the parking lot, and we had looked at different alternatives. And I thought we were going to come this year with the construction of the parking lot. But then the needs have come up with regards to the bathrooms, which was decided to go after strong this year. And then we found out about then there was a movement to do the dock expansion, and that committee was formed, and when they got the green light from the state, they were very optimistic that we could, start that project. And then I went and did the asset management plan and found out we have, significant problems in need of addressing. As a result, in discussions with the committees and then with the selectmen, it was decided to delay the construction of the parking lot, in that we've got potentially the bathrooms, which are going to happen hopefully in 19, and then potentially the repairs in 2020. So the thought is that this construction project would be put off until 2020. And the selectmen thought, again, let's put some money aside. Let's keep trying to fund this project as it has to get done. So the idea was to set up the capital reserve and put in the sum of money this year. And it would be, again, another one that would be a couple of years, and then it would potentially be closed out. But there could be some thought to opening up just a parking lot capital reserve, because we have multiple parking lots. So once we get done with Dockside, last year we did Mass Landing. We're doing this one. We have the Oddfellows lot. We have lots everywhere, and it's just another asset that has to get replaced at some point, in the idea of $50,000 a year. And then when you get to a certain amount, you do a parking lot. That's a potential. But right now, this is specific to the Dockside parking lot.
Is there already any money in a parking lot capital reserve fund, or is this?
Yes, the town appropriated $100,000 into that account.
There's 102.
So we've already got 100 in there already. We're going to add another 50.
102,000, including the interest. That's
And to John's question, at what point do we stop putting money in there, or do we keep putting money in there?
Again, the specific plan here is $50,000 a year for the next 3 years, which gives us that $150,000, and in 2020, we'd have, which the estimate is 250 is right now, but that could, so it'd be 3 years at 50.
Do you anticipate at some point in the future coming to us and having a warrant article where we just withdraw the funds from that capital reserve account and have it cost the taxpayers zero because there's no impact because we've already got that money put aside?
It doesn't need a warrant article because it's in the capital reserve fund. The selectmen are the agents to expend. So when there's enough money in the fund to fund the project,
you just do it.
The selectmen can authorize the expenditure.
That's just a mechanical thing. The answer is yes. The money's in the bank to pay for it.
Well, it would be the last, for instance, in 2020, we'd still be asking for $50,000, and at town meeting, it would be, okay, this year we have the 250, and we're going to start construction. So But technically, Dave's correct, the Board of Selectmen could spend it when they seem it's right to do it.
David, how confident are you in the construction costs in the back? If we're
Those
talking
were-
going out 2 or 3 years before something would
Well,
happen.
there's two things that are going to affect that cost estimate: escalation, and then the potential for doing more than just the minimum. This is the minimum. We had looked at landscape upgrades, tree plantings, cutting the number of parking spaces, making it more pedestrian space. Originally, we get some good feedback, but then on a second public meeting, there was some pushback, and I think the selectmen are now looking at it to be more of a functional, get as many parking spaces as possible, and we have cut out stormwater treatment. So this cost is the cost to basically rip up all the pavement, get a fabric down, because we have a lot of urban fill underneath there, so that it helps stabilize it, and then build it back up with selects and then 4 inches of pavement. But it doesn't include any extensive fancy walkways. We would put a walkway between where the people get off the Mount Washington and head out, so there would be a walkway going down that alley, which is the entrance. So the potential for the town to say, you know what, we want to spend a little bit more money, so the cost could go up if we increase the scope, and the cost could go up if there's escalation. But those are dollars this year. So they're intended to, hopefully build it next year. But
Being the expert that you are, can you...
Did you say expert?
Yeah.
I'm not an expert, no.
Well, you've been around this barn a couple of times, I'm sure.
I would not say that. I'm a
Okay.
reckless guy who's
I guess my
been in
point-
here trying to get things done, and
I guess my question is order of magnitude, fancy additions as you define them?
350,000 is what I was hoping to make it look what I think it deserves, to really spend some money on it, because we're a beautiful town, and we should have a beautiful parking lot in the downtown area there. I think we can, and I use the term Disneyland. I want to make it look like Disneyland.
Okay,
But I don't think that's the desire of the community.
Just a round number, that's all, I just want to get my head around a round number of making it really wonderful.
Question, David? It seems to me that, as I've gone through the areas quite a few times, where the really bad spots are is where the people who put up tents and drive stakes into the ground, the asphalt. Is there any way to preclude that?
You stop using it with tents. Or we
Have
should
free-
then, that would be something we would, one of the things that we talked about in the design when we had our public meetings, we need to talk to the people who have these events here, and whether we could design, if we knew where they were going to go, we could design structures for them to tie into. So we can't have them, once we design the new parking lot, we're not going to allow people to do the penetration. Right now, it's such a mess. How much more can it hurt? So you're right. Every time we stick a hole in it, it's creating more water to get in, creating more problems. But it also is a problem with the subbase and the fact that the lot is past its useful life.
Yeah.
So I think in the design, we would talk with the boat shows. I think those are the ones that set up the tents,
Antique?
Antique, yeah. So we would try to incorporate in the design. We also talked about motorcycles, making sure we have places for the motorcycles to put their little kickstands on. So there's some of that, the details are, we would not want that. If we spend this kind of money, we would not allow people to be penetrating.
Should hope
this.
not.
But we would design so we could still have the tents and still have that use.
Yeah, John?
Yes, sir.
A couple of years ago, Dave brought in a plan to the CIP about dockside, which he referred to, which would have included some green space, a lot of beautiful trees, a lot of plantings. It was really, really a very, would have been a very nice setup, but it carried two very big problems. One was it would have been extremely difficult to back a boat down the boat ramp. And the second was the elimination of so many parking spaces, which is a big problem in town. So that's why it kind of got rejected, but it was a...
Oh, if I had my
beautiful
cases,
plan.
I would take the boat ramp out. Instead, we are going to be more functional, more Yankee, and we made the boat ramp bigger, so people can get bigger boats in, more boats, and again, expand it so we have more commerce, but we want Disneyland, go to Florida, right?
We'll become a resident of Wolfeboro and pay our taxes.
Excuse me?
You could pay red taxes in Wolfeboro, that's the whole thing. I'm just concerned about the cost, that's all. The tax rate and everything. I bet we'll have over $1 million down there in the next 5 years or 10 years. Would that be a fair, huh?
No doubt.
Would that be a fair?
Over $1 million, you said.
Over $1 million.
No doubt.
I'm just trying to figure out how it's all going to be paid. That's the main thing, with the taxpayers. It's going to cost $1 million pretty much to do everything down there. And what effect that's going to have on the tax rate.
It's right here. It's all, every year, death and taxes are going to go up, man.
Well, yeah, I know. I tell the voters that, death and taxes.
That's okay.
With everything else, we have Libby Museum.
I'm just here to do what you want, and I propose, and you guys tell me, no, don't do it, that's fine. It's all right
Okay,
with me.
thank you.
I would
Yeah.
offer, Mr. Chairman, that we are trying to be sensitive to the taxpayers. That's why we're putting forward $50,000 a year, so there's not a big impact. We're building this fund up, and so when the project's ready, it won't have a big impact on the tax base.
Okay. It has some impact now, though, doesn't it?
$50,000 worth. 2.5 cents on the tax rate.
Okay.
I think we'd all be in agreement, that's a smart way to do it. But to John's point, every year our taxes go up, and so we want to be
Understood.
sensitive to that. And so we're all residents, and we all pay taxes, and we just watch it go up and up and up. And so we just want to make sure that we are prudent with what we're doing, and I think we are putting this money aside. What I would like to see is when we actually, and I didn't realize that if the money is in the capital fund, you can decide to spend it whenever you want to. What I'd like to do is
Not me, the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I know, I didn't mean to say that, sorry. But when that happens, it would be nice just to say, see some kind of something come through as a memorandum to the Budget Committee saying, we are going to expend this, and just to kind of keep pace with
Well,
you.
we tell you every year what we intend to do. We're gonna buy a fire truck in such and such a year. We're gonna, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna buy a DPW truck in such and such a year.
Right.
That's,
And I'd just like to see when that actually happens, because sometimes I'm out of the loop as one person.
Okay, we all set on the dockside parking lot capital reserve. Next one is wastewater treatment plant capital reserve. No, I'm sorry, Public Works vehicle equipment capital reserve.
This has been, again, an ongoing and one that I don't envision ever ending. We have tried to level fund it in the last few years at $170,000. In 2018, we are looking at replacing HD7, which is a 6-wheel dump truck, and downsizing it to a 1.5-ton Terrastar. We have 2 of those now, and we're trying to, like the chief was saying, is better size our equipment to the needs. We have gone to 2 10-wheelers for our long trips for the guys who've got to go up in the North Wolfeboro, and we have the smaller trucks in the small areas. We think this is, again, so this will be a less expensive truck, but one that will be functional for us. And we're also looking at replacing our leaf vac blower. So we were looking at expending about $170,000, just about as much as we're requesting.
Any questions for Public Works capital reserve?
What is the balance of that fund now?
It's a little confusing because Pete could give you a number, but we just paid for the 10-wheel dump truck, so is that included in there? I'll give you the actual number. I believe we will have, what are you going to say? Okay. We're at about $60,000 after we've done paying for the truck and we had an emergency replacement SW2, a skid steer. The Board of Selectmen authorized the expenditure to also replace that ahead of schedule because I had miscalculated the useful life on that. And that broke down, and it was determined that it was going to cost 50% of the cost of a new one to repair it, and then we would still be looked at a vehicle that would not have much of a useful life. So the selectmen authorized us to go ahead and purchase the skid steer. With that purchase this year, we'll still have a balance of $60,000. And with the one thing, this is a model that each year is subject to change. It doesn't include escalation of the vehicles out years, but it also doesn't include the trade-in values of the vehicles. And we are trading in the value, so we do get that, and that kind of offsets each other. But each year we try to update this and see where we are with the replacement schedule.
Okay, any other questions on that one? Okay, let's do wastewater treatment plant capital reserve.
Our wastewater treatment plant was recommended in 2005 to be replaced with a $12 million new plant. At that time, we were just funding the RIB project, and we thought we were going to have problems with the treatment plant meeting the new groundwater discharge permit for total nitrogen. At that time, we appropriated a sum of about just under $200,000 to do upgrades that would get us through a certain period of time. With the hard work of our contract operator, Woodward & Curran, and working with the town, we were able to get the process excellent. In fact, our wastewater plant won an award last year for the best plant in the state. However, it's still basically a 1970s plant. It has numerous problems. And 3 years ago, I suggested we begin this cap reserve. I identified $1 million of projects over an 8-year period, and we requested the amount each year of $125,000. Well, we have a plan. Things change. Last year, 2 years ago, we had the ability to get a $80,000 grant from Homeland Security. So for an emergency generator, because we had the money available and they wanted to get rid of the money, we were in the right spot, we could match it, and we were able to, and the generator was scheduled to get replaced a few years later, but that could be moved up, and it did, and it worked out very well. This past year, we have been working on our sludge pumping and piping, and then we found out we had problems in the headworks. So we had to shift, and we took care of the headworks problem. This winter, February, our sludge building, which was one of the projects that was scheduled to be upgraded, collapsed under a snow load. So now we have a significant problem. We did get an insurance check for about $50,000. So that's going to be into this account, and we're working on the replacement or upgrade of that facility. So this is ongoing, and it's much needed, but I would tell you that it's not going to end. We're going to have bigger needs going forward, and as part of the asset management plan, again, we're trying to make sure we take care of the critical items first and extend the useful life as long as we can, as long as it doesn't endanger anyway. So safety is our first thing, and trying to make sure that we are compliant, that we don't violate any DS rules, and then try to be efficient. So we were looking at doing concrete repairs, which are necessary, but the costs are extensive and outside the budget we have here. So we have air diffusers. Is the whole treatment process is based on our air diffusers. The system is 10 years old and needs to be upgraded. So we're going to have to put off concrete repairs and focus on the air system next year. And again, it's a necessary, and again, but we are trying to be as frugal as possible to keep the facility safe and, like I say, compliant and efficient. But there are many needs there, and as we finish the asset management plan, we'll show you, again, the long-term course, and I would anticipate after we complete this cycle, the 8-year cycle, we're going to have to increase this each year.
Okay, any other questions of Mr. Ford?
Yes, Dave, I think you've done a terrific job up there. Really, I think this is a very important warrant article. A couple of years ago, the CIP committee got a tour of the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant, and those two facilities are in primo condition. They really look very good. They're well taken care of, and I hope Bob gets a chance to take a tour of those two facilities soon, because
Maybe I can get a private tour.
Sure, I'd enjoy that.
yeah, so
Wake me in right.
that's it for me, John.
Anybody else? David, you got anything else?
The last one would have been the building maintenance cap reserve. If
You're going to do
wanna
that one? Okay.
Get that one out of the way, and then we'll be all done. So, this one, again, and I apologize for, the selectmen have, and I had scheduled to have our asset management plan for the buildings well underway this year. Our consultant provided the product that it was unsatisfactory to me, and we did not pay them, and they're back on the drawing board. In fact, they were back today going through this building. Earlier this week, they were at Dockside, and tomorrow they're going to be at the Lodge. We are, again, with our asset management plan, we're going to identify all the critical assets over $1,000 within the building, determine their useful life, and then to figure out a repair replacement strategy. This may be considered putting the cart before the horse, but I can tell you that this fund will have to grow each year. I envision it at least $25,000 a year till we get up to a point which would be sufficient to keep us from getting too far behind. We have over 20 buildings and millions of dollars in our buildings, and we are running them into the ground, quite frankly. This building here was a $4 million investment, but it was not taken care of, which is, and now we want to keep on it so that it doesn't, we want to keep it looking nice, and, but there's a lot of systems in this building that have surprisingly shorter useful lives than the building itself. This building, there's no reason why it can't last another 100 years, but each individual systems have problems. Right now, we're trying to identify, inventory everything, and then develop a nice, so hopefully this time next year, we'll have a much better plan showing you where the money's going to go. Right now, this is more of an emergency fund. This year, we had to use it to separate the sewer from this building out of the foundation drain in our effort to mitigate the amount of groundwater that's getting into our sewer system, so we had to replumb the building. And I'm trying to think what else we did. We used a couple of...
We had a sewer break.
So we had a sewer break, which created that,
Right
yeah.
here in
That's
this building, yes.
right. So the sewer, and that. So as much as we, so this is again much needed and probably underfunded, but we have, this is I think our third year, and each year we have increased it, and I do envision this again getting the backup next year so we can see where the money is going to go. But right now it's kind of an emergency fund.
David, when do you feel like maybe the asset management plan with regards to the buildings be in some sort of stage where you can give a rough idea of whether the 75,000 is going to be the number from now?
I can guarantee that it'll be much more than that, and I think that this time next year I'll have a much better handle on it. It won't be 100% complete, but I would think that it'll be well on its way, so that again, with probably within a 2 or 3 year period, I would hope that we would have almost all our assets within the town, and we'll have, like, again, the water system, the sewer system, the roads, the stormwater system, the wastewater. So the hopeful is within the 2 or 3 years, we'll have them all nailed down, and then we can then develop the, again, the 100-year plan for all the infrastructure and buildings.
So then the capital reserve funds will then make sense?
It absolutely does. It's...
No, I mean, they'll make sense because it's an asset management plan that backs them up.
Exactly. Like what you see Parks and Rec, they have very specific, like with our trucks, those have been going. these are, there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and the buildings were a challenge for us, and again, I want to make sure we do it right, so it is a little slower, but hopefully we'll be better to answer those questions next year.
Thanks.
Anything else for David? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, Peter, you want to go over the estimated revenues, or do you want to do the default budget first?
We're gonna do this one, yeah?
Okay.
Under SB2, every year, the state requires the town to prepare a default budget. Essentially, the process used is they take the last year's budget and adjust it up or down for contractual items such as collective bargaining costs, the contracts that will be enforced for the next year, and also reductions for one-time items such as capital budgets within the operating budget. And then if your main warrant article for the operating budget fails, that then becomes the fallback under the law. So using the method I always do, I've calculated it for $26,814,660 for next year. Major reason for that is the electrical. You've got, what, $900,000 more in an electrical contract with ISO New England, or not ISO, but PSEG. So it's really, other than that, it's a mixed net reduction.
One more time, I have on your paperwork default budget at $26,814,660. Is that what you said? That's not the-
$26,814,660.
660, so the difference is about, you have it at, what's it, about $500,000?
Well, that's the reductions, but there's also, if you look at the back, there in a net increase in one column.
Right, right.
This is a state form. This doesn't, you have to get used to it because it's not really, it's kind of doesn't make a lot of sense at first.
Yeah, it's about a $600,000 difference in the budget. Well, we haven't really set the budget yet, but we're looking at about $600,000 difference, I think, thereabouts. Well, it looks to me like most of the capital outlay items come out.
Absolutely, they're one-time items.
Okay, and the non-union raises come out. Is that correct?
They're not, yeah, they don't, no, they're not in there because all of the, what I do is I take the town manager's column for payroll and most benefits, and those only include collective bargaining costs, and the non-union raises are not in there.
They're not in here.
They are not in there, no.
So nobody gets a raise then, who's not in the union?
Only the people under the collective bargaining system. And then the one thing I do is that on the health insurance and the dental insurance costs, I keep it at the lowest number. So even though we initially in the town manager's column, it's at a higher amount, I always reduce those items that I know are going to be reduced anyway down.
Now, what about the agencies? Are the agencies in the
I
default
leave them
budget?
alone because they go from year to year to year.
They're not considered one-shots even though they're year to year?
No,
Okay,
never have been anyway, so.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Anything else on the default budget? Any other questions? Okay, how about revenues?
Revenues. Revenues, these are all based on whatever the balance, collected balances were at the end of November. We actually, during the process before tax rate is set, estimate revenues at least 3 times. I will actually take another look at revenues after I know what the end of December numbers are. For instance, in the motor vehicle permit fees, I estimated 1.4 million, and we've already collected 1.4 million, so at the end of the month, I'll talk to Pat and see how confident she is in maybe increasing that. So you could actually gain reasonably substantial amount of additional revenue by doing that, but I'd like to wait till the end of the year and see how confident she is, and I wouldn't want to I don't like to overestimate revenues. One way you can tie this in the report I gave you, I gave the estimate first couple of pages. The first 2 pages, the estimate with the budget as far as it stood. The third page, the package I gave you shows you the warrant articles and estimates the tax rate for next year, and I tie this revenue spreadsheet into that as we go along. If anybody has any questions on any?
Yeah, Pete, it actually looks, under revenues and credits, it looks very good. It looks like you're at 100% on and over on most of the lines as of the end of November, so it looks like we're going to do very well in those columns. And also on the interfund transfers, it looks like we're going to peak out at over 100% on the
Yeah,
totals
actually,
also.
that's over the course of the last several years that the offsets for the water and sewer fund have actually been improving.
Right.
Yep, very well.
Yeah, it looks
I was
good.
surprised.
Very-
I was pleasantly surprised for this year, especially. Those numbers there that you see there, as far as actuals, are the sales amounts that I get from Brenda.
Right, and I noticed on your list of miscellaneous warrant articles, actually a spreadsheet here, it looks to me like you dropped the anticipated pay down from the surplus fund from 200,000 to 100,000 next year.
Yeah, it ended up being, we had about 3%, which is under the state recommendation.
So according to your calculus on the bottom, it looks like you have us going up from $5.76 to $6.04, or up about 28 cents per thousand.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember last year when we estimated the tax rate at this time, we had originally estimated it at $5.81.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it actually came in at $5.76.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And it looks to me like on the cash warrant articles, if they go as they are, it looks to me like we're up about 139,000 from last year, thereabouts. So that would be next year, 2018. My math has it at about $1,927,750, and that would be the cash warrant articles, or up around 7 cents per thousand. So.
the last page of my revenue report is an offset listing of all the offsets, so you can tie those into the revenue spreadsheet.
Okay, Peter, what else do we have from you? Anything?
I think that's all for me.
You did this proposed budget worksheet here.
Yeah, that's a new one after last night, and
So right now, the subtotal of the general fund is up 3.18%, or $417,623.
correct.
And the enterprise funds are up $861,244 for 6.63%. And you put them both together, and you have a total of $27,399,238, which is $1,278,867 over last year's budget, or 4.90%. That sound about right?
That's where I've got it right now.
Okay. And that doesn't include any of the warrant articles or the other things. So Leanne, how are we standing so far? I think we've got pretty much everything checked off our list. We don't even have any more agencies, do we? Do we have any open,
Final budget review, and then consideration of minutes, which we can schedule for the 28th.
does that ever work with everybody?
We need the votes on the warrant article.
Coming in on 28th? you said?
December 28th?
Thursday. Can I just clarification about the voting on the warrant article? Do you want to do those that night, or do you want to do them the evening of the hearing?
We'll do that after the public hearing, or during the public hearing, when we go over warrant articles.
We got 2 weeks off.
Yeah. Well, do you want to, if you don't want to cut the budget and make any more adjustments, we can have a whole month off. But I think we still got a little work ahead of us. Anyone agree or no?
It's a good 2-week time for Bob to get his driveway cleared up.
Yeah.
And just a reminder that the public hearing is actually a week earlier than it has been for the last 10 years. Keep that in mind. Our first public hearing is scheduled for January 4th.
Right.
Typically, it's the week of the 10th, 11th, or 12th.
Leanne, the 28th, is that here?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
The
Okay.
public hearings are here, but at 7 o'clock, not 6:30.
Right, and the 28th is here.
28th is here at 6:30. Actually, Robert, can you look at that? Is it here? Here or the library?
Says Great Hall, 28th.
Has anybody
Okay,
done
great
the
call.
public hearing notice for this public hearing?
I submitted it to Ian.
It's here.
At the time that
7 or 6?
it was approved.
Tuesday.
So you're saying it's,
Okay, so our next meeting will be December 28th, 6:30 here, and we're going to do a full budget review.
So we're not doing the 21st?
No, that will be canceled.
Yep.
See my sheet?
Okay, anything else from you folks? Yes, sir.
One more thing.
On the 9th.
Actually, I wanted to ask these guys,
Just to clear it up, the 21st is out.
The 25th is out, yes.
We're going to have minutes review?
What's that?
Minutes review?
We're going to do that on the 28th, the minutes?
Yeah,
Okay.
on,
final budget.
Yeah, because we said last time, maybe tonight.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead, Bob.
can we let the White Horse Addiction Center know that we zeroed them out last night?
I didn't communicate back to them, no.
Well, can we?
Yes, we can.
Well, because that woman left here, probably with the idea that that money was granted, and I think they should be notified that it's not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else from everybody?
John, do you need this, or do you,
Pardon me?
do you need this, or can I have it back?
Oh, you can have it, yeah. so I just want to make sure we do our, we review our budget review, if we're going to do any adjustments. Do you want the departments here there also, or do you want to just, what do you want to do? I think I'm pretty confident I can make a decision without them being here, but do you want them to be aware before the public hearing, or?
Well, if we're going to think about changing their budgets, then maybe they should be here, you know, so they can respond.
Typically, each year, I send out, notifying the department heads of the date of the final budget review. So if they choose to come, they choose to come.
That's fine.
I like that.
We discussed it at the department heads meeting this morning, and I told them I would let them know when the final budget review date is. So between Leanne and myself, they'll be notified.
And they were given that schedule anyways. By the time that-
Okay. Okay, I guess we're looking for a motion to adjourn if you don't have anything else. I'm sorry.
I move.
Oh, you do? Okay. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.